Hi, everybody. It's a special A&E edition of the Sweat coming your way. It's
historic.
It is historic, and it'll possibly include no pants and oodles and oodles of information.
For now, we have pants. A lot can happen. But we're also going to get into MLB Big Slate, NFL Price Check. Lewis Brinson from the Marlins will join us. Jimmy Butler, where the hell's he going? We're going to find out, but this is where you're headed.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. No Jesse Cofield. No problem. Alongside the handsome, charming, and dreamy Adam Kaufman.
I'm just glad you put pants on.
Yeah. You're welcome. And by the way, I did write all that. Okay?
You welcome. Did. No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm Emerson Lotzia. Thanks for watching The Sweat, everybody.
Genuine. Hey, speaking of handsome, charming, and dreamy, let's give it up for our NFL panel tonight. Reed Fowler, Jeff Ulrich, and Ryan Collinsworth, who you can check out on the Action Network, which is available right now on Android and iPhone. Now, Reed's charming, Ryan's handsome. I'm having a hard time with Jeff being the dreamy one, though.
Oh, sorry about that, bud. All right, gentlemen.
It's hard to keep up.
I don't know, man. Price Check is the name of the game. Do the following players match the value of their salary for Week 4? Reed, Phillip Rivers making a $700 jump to $6,500. About to host the 49ers. What makes you think he'll deliver the goods at that price?
Yeah, opposing quarterbacks. I mean, I like that price. Opposing quarterbacks scored the 6th most DK fantasy points against the 49ers. Like 42% of opposing teams against the 49ers defense end in a score, which is tied, I think, for the 6th highest in the league. The 49ers are really void of anyone on defense to stop someone like Phillip Rivers, which sounds kind of weird. He's a guy who's later in his career, but the Chargers have a ton of weapons on offense. Like the Chargers are 5th in yards per game, and Rivers is 6th in yards per pass completed. So all of these stats lead you to believe that that implied game total for the Chargers is 27, that he's going to go off. There's a lot of places that you could go with the Chargers here. You could pay down for some of these guys or pay up for Gordon, who's in a good spot as well. So I do like this price.
You like the price, Jeff?
I mean, Phillip Rivers has, 12 kids now? How can you not like the price on this guy? I can't believe he makes the field every week. Look, the Chargers are in a good spot, and they're probably going to get a little bit overlooked. They're 10.5-point favorites, home favorites, against the San Francisco defense that's without Richard Sherman. I don't know what the exact upside is with Phillip Rivers, mainly because they're going to have to, for him to have a really monster game, they're going to need San Francisco to keep it close. So you're kind of putting your hopes on CJ Beathard, which is, a gamble. But I think Rivers has a really nice floor this week. Reed kind of hit it on the head. The San Francisco's front seven is actually pretty good at stopping the run. I think the Chargers will take advantage of this matchup through the air. So I think Rivers is a nice floor play, especially for cash games.
In all sincerity, what does he have? 8 kids? Is it 8 kids, I think?
He wants 12.
No wonder he takes those long bus rides.
I think he has 8. He wants more.
The guy is always all over the place. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, not only is Richard Sherman out, but Jimmy Ward is also questionable. So, that vulnerable secondary has given up 4.2 plus minus to quarterbacks already this season. The only thing that gives me pause, as was alluded to earlier, is the Niners have the 5th worst run defense in the league this season per Pro Football Focus. With a big spread, game script could favor the run. So I may look to get a little bit of Melvin Gordon this week. But with the 2nd highest implied team total of this slate, I definitely want a piece of the Chargers, and Rivers is a good option to access some of that scoring upside.
All right, guys, let's move it along. $600 increase for James White. It's going to cost $5,400 this week for New England's tilt with the undefeated Dolphins. Rex Burkhead on injured reserve. We learned that this morning. So what does that do for this situation for White, Jeff? Is he a bargain? What do you think?
I mean, I don't know if I'd call him a bargain. I was a little disappointed to see he was actually priced up, even with Burkhead out. The thing with James White is, he's obviously he's going to get a little bit more usage without Burkhead there. There's no question, but he's still very game flow dependent. I mean, the Patriots were running Sony Michel in as much as they could last game, and I don't know if that was just a matchup thing with the Detroit Lions or if they're going to keep trying to give him 20 touches a game going forward. So I like the price on James White. I like the spot for James White with no Rex Burkhead. I don't think it's a horrible matchup against Miami. New England is another team with a huge implied team total this week, but you are kind of paying up. I mean, you're not getting a huge bargain here, and James White is hit or miss. So the upside, I think, is still there to roster him here, but I'd be looking at him more as a GPP-only play myself. I just don't trust that the game flow is going to 100% be there for him. So
Ryan, GPP only, or do you think this is maybe a bargain? You like the price?
No, I agree with Jeff. I don't think it's a crazy bargain. I mean, his 20 targets this season, that's obviously the big allure with White. His receiving upside buoys his fantasy floor to keep that high. But, we all know he has limited rushing upside. And with Rex Burkhead on IR, I think that benefits Sony Michel much more than it does James White. The last 2 weeks without Burkhead, Michel's kind of been the grinded out back for the Patriots. And I think it's going to stay that way. At 5,400, I agree that he's actually priced a little bit too high. I'd prefer to go down to somebody like Kerryon Johnson at 4,400 against the Dallas defense without Sean Lee. I like that a bit better.
Reed, we don't need to parrot this situation. Do you have anything unique to add? Are you on board with these guys?
Yeah, I'm on board. I think what you like about James White is that target share. Look, 20 gets him at fifth most for running backs, and he's only right now 51% of the snaps. And so you do like that upside. But these guys are right. He's game flow dependent. You think that goes to Sony Michel. I actually like Kenyon Drake on the other side for a couple $100 less in terms of pivoting because of this news, a lot of people might flock to his price tag of that 5,400. So even if the ownership gets up to double digits in these tournaments, then I would stay away.
Hey guys, Odell Beckham Jr. now half a grand more compared to last week. $8,700 price tag after nearly 23 fantasy points against Houston. Could be another shootout against the Saints, so should people expect a high return on their investment here, Ryan?
I think so. I mean, the total set at 50. It was driven up from 49. Heavy action is on the over. No Evan Ingram, so that means potentially more targets funneled to Beckham and also Sterling Shepard at 4,900, who I like. The Saints don't have their slot corner, Patrick Robertson, and I think Shepard, he's operated out of the slot most this season, and I think Beckham, we actually could see operate out of the slot a little bit with Ingram out. So, with the Saints, they're allowing over 300 passing yards per game and 10 passing touchdowns already this season. Yeah, I like the Giants and Odell Beckham in the spot.
I mean, if you're an Odell Beckham Jr. owner here, Reed, you should be salivating over this matchup, right?
Yeah, I think so. But in terms of DFS, I'd rather go to Sterling Shepard. If you look at what happened last week with Julio and Calvin Ridley, look, these guys are similarly priced in terms of OBJ and Shepard. Ridley was even cheaper. He was below the 4K mark. And look what happened. Ryan's right. The second cornerback is having trouble. Like, it was supposed to be Ken Crawley. Then they switched they're moving around Marshawn Lattimore, and they can't really figure out what they want to do yet on defense. New Orleans is giving up 66 DK fantasy points to opposing receivers. That's number one. So Sterling Shepard at 4,900 is a nice bargain, especially if you want to pay up for these other guys at other positions, studs like Kamara. I don't mind it, but if you look at what happened last week, you wanted really because you got that savings. So I'll take Shepard here, but OBJ is in a fine spot.
Jeff, if you drop $8,700 on Odell Beckham Jr., will you get enough in return for that?
I think you're going to. I think there's going to be a lot of people who do pay down and just say, well, I don't need to take Odell in this spot. I'll just take Sterling Shepard. I think it might be a mistake. Odell Beckham is outside of the Dallas game, which was really a pace down game. They played at Dallas's pace the whole time. He's been heavily targeted every game. I actually like the way the Giants ran their offense. They're trying to get it to their players. They're not messing around. It's a bit more short passing, sure, but it's been effective. Eli Manning, outside of the Jacksonville game, has been completing over 70% of his passes. It's actually been a pretty effective offense, and I think you're going to really see it come into focus here against the Saints, who, again, we don't need to go over this again. The Saints have a bad secondary right now. They're completely out of sorts. They just lost one of their best players. I think Odell Beckham is in a huge spot here, and people might be overlooking the fact that he hasn't quite found the end zone yet. They're just, they're not quite sure what to make of him in this offense, but this is a big spot for him. And if there's one player I'm paying up for in this game, let me put it this way, it's him this week. So.
All right, how about Tyler Eifert, guys? He's got the biggest price jump among tight ends, $3,800. Is on the road in Atlanta. Seems like a pretty good value against a banged-up Falcons defense. What do you say, Reed?
Yeah, I think for season long, if you're looking for a flyer to fill in for Jordan Reed, I think so. But in terms of DFS, I think that's too much. Like, this guy's only in on 67% of snaps. So to pay up at that price, I think you're getting too much, or you're paying up a little bit too much. I'd actually go, again, in that same game, Austin Hooper at 2,900 going against the Bengals. Cincinnati is fifth best for opposing tight ends, getting up close to 19 DK fantasy points and 2 TDs in 3 games. And so when you look at tight ends, touchdowns at any guy is really a tight end one production day. So give me Austin Hooper at that depressed price, especially if we just talked about it. paying up for a guy like OBJ, you're going to need to save somewhere else. And I think Austin Hooper would be my guy instead of Tyler Eifert.
Ryan, where would you save?
Yeah, after the injury to Deion Jones earlier this season, the Falcons secondary, it's vulnerable, but in a very specific way. I mean, running backs out of the backfield the last 2 weeks have gouged them. McCaffrey went for 14 catches on 102 yards 2 weeks ago, and then Kamara last week, 15 catches for 124 yards on 20 targets, which is ludicrous for a running back. And I think the real value play, if you want to attack that Falcons secondary, is probably Giovanni Bernard at 6,300. To me, Eifert is still too touchdown dependent for consideration in DFS, especially in that offense with so many playmakers. I think around the price point, I'd pay down to O.J. Howard or Ben Watson. And if you went with Ben Watson, you could kind of run a game stack with that Giants-Saints game that we just alluded to there.
All right, Dreamy Jeff, you paying down as well, or do you like the price right there for Eifert?
I like that. That's a good. Let's make that stick. Like you have to approach this from a bit of a game theory perspective. Who's everyone going to be targeting? Everyone likes the Bengals offense this week. We all know Atlanta's down a bunch of players. Everyone's going to be targeting Gio. Everyone's going to be targeting Tyler Boyd because he's the new fancy value play option. If you want to leverage tournament play, Tyler Eifert is the guy to go to here because, we alluded to it already. He's touchdown dependent, sure, but every tight end basically under 4K is touchdown dependent. Tyler Eifert has shown that he can flash with multiple touchdown games with Andy Dalton in the past. And he's got a very good matchup to do that this week. So yes, I understand he's splitting snaps. That CJ Zuma or whoever is still, in play catching a couple passes, but Tyler Eifert has that multiple touchdown upside. I think he's a good tournament swerve play if you're targeting this game specifically. He's boom or bust, but the boom is definitely there this week for me.
All righty, Dreamy Jeff, I believe you're taking off, but the rest of you guys hang tight. We're going to roll through the impact of some of the biggest injuries around the league coming up with you and our injury expert. That would be Dr. P. Plus, we're chasing and fading with Bukes and Garion right after Adam Levitan delivers this gem.
We'll repeat a question from last week after the Vikings defense debacle this weekend. How do you approach team defense selection? Feels glossed over for the most part in DFS analysis. Where is the edge to be had? Yeah, so this is one thing about embracing variance, right? Can we predict defensive touchdowns reliably? Can we predict kick return touchdowns, punt return touchdowns? I'd say we can to some degree with a small edge. And so I'll give a few kind of basic tips that I think about for defense. First of all, we want to use defenses against teams who pass a lot, right? Like it's obviously hard to generate sacks, strip sacks, pick sixes when teams are just running the ball. Second of all, pressure on quarterbacks is so important. They generate the big plays that we want. Again, you get sacks, strip sacks, pick sixes. So we want a good pass rush against a bad offensive line. That should be a no-brainer. And finally, teams playing with a lead and a big lead are best. It creates more risks taken by quarterbacks. Quarterbacks, when they're behind, are obviously going to try to push the ball downfield more, try to fit into tighter windows. It just creates more passing situations also. So teams we expect to win and win easily are always good. So I think we can generate an edge by keeping those things in mind, but certainly not nearly as big of an edge as we can generate by playing, like Gio Bernard or something while our opponents play Kenyon Drake last week, right? Like all defenses get similar opportunity. Those at running back, wide receiver, tight end get drastically different opportunity. And then of course a whole slate can be tilted by a defensive or multiple special teams touchdowns or whatever, which is obviously pretty random.
All right, let's talk some baseball with the boys. Garion Thorne and Steve Buchanan, who has to be mighty excited. His Red Sox put up 300 runs on the Orioles this afternoon.
Yeah, that was a pretty impressive performance. Steve, it's actually time for a little chaser fade. And in the nightcap of the doubleheader, of course, between the Sox and O's, it's going to be Chris Sale on the mound and targeting 90 pitches as he's been slowly ramping up since coming off the disabled list. That is enough to make him a viable play at more than $11,000, right? Chase or fade? What do you say?
Look, you don't normally get him this cheap when he's not on a pitch limit or not really one that you have to worry about. Last time he was under 12,000 was June 13th against the Chicago White Sox. Now he faces this pathetic Orioles club. Did you see that performance this afternoon? You probably didn't because it wasn't worth watching. But, boy, does that team look terrible. Sale has averaged 30.3 DK fantasy points in 3 starts against this club with a K9 of 16.3. I said that correctly. That is not incorrect. I mean, look, he obviously has the he has the capability, to rack up the strikeouts in the short outing against the Indians his last time out. 7 strikeouts through 3 1/3 innings. Just pay up for sale. Don't worry about this one.
Garen?
Yeah, I mean, like Steve said, you really just kind of have to look for a comparable here. Like, is it possible to score 30-plus DK points against the Orioles on less than 90 pitches? And we don't have to go back that far to find the answer to that question. Monday night, Nathan Eovaldi, who is not a Chris Sale-level strikeout pitcher, you have to go back to 2014 when he was still with the Marlins to find a game where he equaled his double-digit strikeout total that he had on Monday night. 10 strikeouts in 5 innings on 85 pitches. That's Nate Eovaldi. That's not Chris Sale. I just think that with this price point, he's a perfectly viable play, although I will say German Marquez right underneath him is also mispriced. I mean, if that game wasn't in Colorado, Marquez would be 12-5, 12-6. So those two guys are really the leverage points on tonight's slate.
Gary, we love your hat.
There's
we
a
all
lot
know
of
you.
Blue Jays going on there.
There
It's
is
all over that room.
Lot of Blue Jays, but I like the look, you know?
Where did you get that hat?
Oh, good question.
It was a giveaway at the Rodgers Center. Now that's Centre. The Val.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Hot
focus on
take.
that.
It kind of looks like you're going to punch my ticket on the train.
I will say this, it does kind of look like you got it for free, but that's okay. We all know
Looks
you
like
love
corduroy almost.
I haven't worn corduroy since like 8th grade. Yeah. Let's put
Cool
the show
bear.
back on the rails.
All right, let's do
We
that.
all know you love the BVP narrative, Gary, and
Punching
so
the train ticket.
here you go. Adrian Beltre at 4K is a great play tonight against Andrew Heaney of the Angels. A dude he's hitting 500 against in his career. 3 moonshots, 8 RBI. Chaser fade, potato chip.
Oh, boy.
Well, I'm already seeing Steve going through a wardrobe change. I'm not going to apologize for my wardrobe.
This guy.
Some of us know style when we see it. Either way, I like Beltre tonight, but it has nothing to do with this BBP nonsense. It's Adrian Beltre, a guy we're talking about with thousands upon thousands of plate appearances in his career, has always crushed left-handed pitching. He's got a 377 career WOBA against lefties. Am I shocked that he's hit this left-hander who struggles with right-handed bats? No, I am not shocked. And Beltre, I mean, this is a guy who I was avoiding for most of the season because we hadn't seen any power. He's got 7 home runs in September, a 375 isolated power, and also third base isn't great tonight. Like, you can pay down for, like, Yolmer Sanchez, who's leading off for the White Sox. Maybe you pay up for Donaldson, but that's not even feeling overly safe right now. I think Beltre's price point makes him super, super viable tonight.
All right, so he is all aboard. All right, anyway, Steven, what do you think? Go ahead.
Just stretching, sorry.
Stretch it out, Johnny BVP. Go ahead.
I want to hear
Take
the
it
lyrics
away.
of the song.
Well, first of all, I need to know who made this question because I feel like they're low-key hitting on me by asking this question. So let's just get that out of the way.
That would be our fantastic producer, Tom Glennon.
Okay, well, Tom, we'll talk later.
he's a
I mean,
big
look,
fan.
obviously, Beltre against Heaney, I mean, it's fairly recent data. I mean, all the at-bats have come in the past 3 seasons, 2 for 6 this year with one of those home runs. It's not a huge sample size, but I mean, even overall, like Garion said, if he didn't have the great BVP, Beltre has to be considered one of the best value plays on the night because no matter where you're attacking on this slate, whether you're paying up for pitching or you're paying up for hitting, you're going to have to do it in one of those areas tonight. So Beltre is definitely going to help you save some money. I mean, look, we have Coors on this field. We have DeGrom. We have Sale. There's just so many options where you're going to have to pay up. So obviously Beltre has to be in the mix there. And Gary said, like he said, third base really isn't that impressive tonight, which is pretty surprising figuring it's a 12-game slate. So there you have it.
When he really dragged out overall, was it just me picturing Gary in overalls with that ridiculous hat?
No,
Like
there
he's
were
on
a lot of
Yeah,
train puns.
Had to
in
be
that,
so many. All right, Steve,
You were
forget.
two stupid Red Sox on this hat. You guys would be all about it.
Yeah, it'd be high fiving.
I don't know.
The
It's
screen,
just
big
too much
guy.
of a conductor hat. I don't like it.
There's a lot of it. Maybe a big brim, too. Steve, forget Coors and that projected 10-run total tonight. Stack the Mariners and A's at 8.5. What do you say, chase or fade?
I'm going to do a little bit of both here. I
Nope,
wouldn't say
chase or
complete.
fade. Get off your fence.
Calm down. I'm still going to do a little bit of both. I mean, let me explain. You can't forget about Coors altogether here because the lefties for the Rockies are in a great spot. I mean, Nick Pivetta on the road against lefties is just absolutely putrid. Like 397 WOBA, 5.32 FIP, 6 home runs allowed. in the same breath, I do like the A's a lot. I mean, they have absolutely owned Felix Hernandez this season. Like, they have his soul in their hand. He's pitched 29 innings against them, just averaging 12 DK fantasy points, I think 15 runs allowed, over 20 hits. I mean, they have just wrecked him, and he's just a shell of his former self. So I would definitely say if you're going to go Coors, I think the lefty Rocky bats are the way to go for it, but the A's are definitely a stack to look at as well.
All right, so chase or fade, Steve. Which one is it? Do you like this game?
Just go to Gary and Adam. I said half and half.
Oh, that fence. Gary, what
I'm
do you
chasing the fade. How's that?
Okay, thank you.
Uh-oh. Gary looks shocked.
Yeah, I'm going to chase this. I mean, Pavetta's not been great so far this season, but across his last 5 starts, he's been holding left-handed bats to under 20% hard contact rate. I'm not saying you can't stack. I'm just saying it's maybe more of an avoid for me than it would be to even, like, recommend using Pavetta or anything crazy like that. But this Oakland-Seattle game, one half of it, really, because I don't want to suggest using a bunch of Mariners against Edwin Jackson, but it's good that Felix Hernandez is apparently taking his American citizenship test in the offseason, because he's going to need to change his identity to get a major league contract in 2019. He is done. He is washed. 3 home runs per 9. The left-handed batters going back to mid-July. Nick Martini, Jed Lowry, Matt Olson all hit better away from the Coliseum. This is a fantastic spot for these Oakland left-handed bats tonight.
Sweatometer is scorching hot. Well done. Choo-choo. All right, lovely work, you two. A new look, Put Up Your Bukes, is coming up, as is the NFL Injury Report with Dr. P and our pretty little panel.
I'm Brendan Glasheen with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Eagles head coach Doug Peterson says wide receiver Alshon Jeffery has been cleared for contact. Thumbs up. The one-time Pro Bowler Jeffery had right shoulder surgery in the offseason. Now, Peterson wouldn't commit to the wideout being available Sunday against the Titans. Either way, you're probably not comfortable rostering Jeffery at 5,700. Then there is establishing rapport with Carson Wentz, who's just getting settled himself as the starting quarterback in Philadelphia. Beyond that, I have questions about Eagles receivers and the spots they're in coming up. Let me explain. Here are Philly's next 5 opponents after Tennessee and where those teams' defenses rank in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers through week 3. Vikings, 5th. Giants, 12th. Panthers, 14th. Jaguars, 4th. Cowboys, 3rd. That's all inside the top 15. 3 teams inside the top 5. The Eagles' aerial attack of Wentz, Jeffery, and so on, they may take a while to click on all cylinders.
Okay, great to have you back. Thanks for staying in your seats. This guy's been dancing the whole time. All right, we have got our NFL panel. Reed Fowler, Ryan Collinsworth from the Action Network, and the man in the middle right there. You can see Dr. Seelan Parekh from Fantasy Doctors and, of course, Duke University. We have him on all the time, our injury expert. And, fellas, we're looking at this week's big injuries, at least as we know them right now, on Hump Day.
Yeah, so let's start with Alshon Jeffery here, Doc. Cleared for contact, recovering from off-season rotator cuff surgery. Why is it important for the Eagles to take it slow bringing him back, Dr. P?
Yeah, you got to take it slow on these rotator cuffs. It is a big, broad tendon group that attaches right on the outside of your shoulder and really takes time to heal. You push them too hard, you push them too fast, you can re-tear the rotator cuff, which takes them out the entire season. So you got to take it gradual. 8 to 10 months after surgery is the usual timeline. He's just passing that 8-month time period, so they've got to take it slow. You're not going to see him 100% this week, but look for them within the next 2 to 3 weeks to get him going.
Reed, if Jeffery does play this week, would you take a flyer on him in Tennessee, $5,700?
Yeah, I feel like I was back in the late 90s. I thought someone got paged there. But yeah,
maybe he did. He's a doctor.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I know, doctor.
Doctors still have beepers, dude.
Do
I know.
doctors still carry pagers?
I forget all the codes already. But no, I mean, I would stay away from it at 5,700. We just don't know, right? You just got cleared for contact. Yes, if you do want to attack this Tennessee defense, the receivers are the best option. But Tennessee, as a total defense, is 4th best, which they're playing really well. You can't really run against them. You can't pass against the tight end against them. So I would really stay away from this game, probably wholeheartedly. If you look at receivers, you can really pay down to find value. You saw with Calvin Ridley, You see Geronimo Allison in that same price range or in the 4K price range. I'd rather go there, someone who's seeing 6 targets per game with Aaron Rodgers, who has to stay in the pocket and pass going against Buffalo, as opposed to attacking that really stout Tennessee defense.
Ryan, what about you? You going to take a flyer on Alshon Jeffery?
Yeah, you can completely miss me with this Alshon Jeffery thing. He's not even remotely on my radar. Let's pretend for a second that he's 100% back and there's no injury concern whatsoever. I don't even like his 100% from last season. This is a guy who's seen his yards per game drop significantly 3 straight seasons. Like 3 seasons ago, 89.7 yards per game. Dope. Last season, 49.3. The only reason why he was fantasy relevant is because he caught 9 touchdowns. That's it. And he had a 47.5% catch rate. That's with Carson Wentz throwing in the ball. I know he's a 50-50 ball guy, but that's still just horrible. And then this game, in particular against the Titans, has a low total at 41. So I want no piece of Jeffrey.
Would you rather scoop up Aguilar, his teammate, same price?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
I'm going to say that Ryan left nothing to the imagination there. We're
Ryan,
firm on where he stands.
Yep,
when
Ryan
it comes to
does
Alshon Jeffery.
not want to talk about Alshon Jeffrey.
Dr.
Don't play out, Jeffrey. Got it.
Yeah, totally ignore it.
Right.
Dr. P, if you're getting a page and you have to go to an emergency surgery, listen, tell them it's only going to be a few more minutes.
All right, I got it. I got more important things to do here with you guys.
Yeah, there you go.
There's
All right,
the attitude.
This one, guys, it hits a little close to home for me. Aaron Rodgers, he's on my fantasy team, my season-long knee and hamstring problems. No practice this week. He will play this Sunday, though. Yeah, I'm bent out of shape about it. I'm stressing. Dr. P, what's the impact from an injury perspective of a player who doesn't practice all week but does show up for the weekend? Can that negatively affect the injury?
I think that's good for the injuries, specifically the ones that he has. They need time to heal, they need rest, and they need decreased reps. For a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who has tremendous muscle memory, he doesn't need to be practicing every day. He can take the time off and still perform on Sunday, and we've seen that for the last 2 weeks.
So, Ryan, I mean, it sounds a little funny to say, I guess, but is it best to stay away from Rodgers while he's on the mend and wait till he's not as banged up? I mean, suppose you have Kirk Cousins as another option.
I mean, I'm still in on Rodgers. The MCL primarily hurts his rushing upside. Like his rushing upside is what made him like the QB1 going into the season in redraft leagues. But his passing acumen is still excellent. Like last game, he threw a couple absolute darts, even off that back leg. He is that Packers offense, and I think that keeps his floor pretty high given the market share he has of their production. I know there's always the potential for re-injury. I get that. But there's always the potential for injury, period. Just ask Jimmy Garoppolo owners last week or Tyrod Taylor owners with the concussion. So as long as Rodgers wants to play, I'm going to still ride him, especially if I can get him at a discount.
Reed's been throwing darts under his breath over there. Go ahead. What do you got to say?
No, just seeing you two is just fantastic. It's like a bromance. Yeah, I'm on board here, Ryan. I think if you get Aaron Rodgers, look, he's the highest priced guy, right? And he's got an injury concern. So if you get depressed ownership on the best quarterback right now, and he's still playing at a QB1 level, even on one leg, you got to play him, right? Yes, he did play against some pretty stout defenses in Minnesota and Washington, who's 5th worst for opposing quarterbacks, but now he gets Buffalo. We saw what Buffalo did to Cousins, right? They just won their Super Bowl going against Minnesota and beating them handily at home in Minnesota, excuse me. But this defense doesn't scare me. I mean, it made Joe Flacco look like an elite quarterback, right, in week 1, and you saw Phillip Rivers drop 3 touchdowns. And I think Rodgers is a little better than both of those guys. So, yeah, I'm playing Rodgers too.
All right, well, Buck safety Chris Conte was stiff-armed by Vance McDonald on Monday, which wasn't pretty. And he apparently played the game with a torn PCL in his knee, landing him on IR. So, Dr. P, how the heck did this guy play through it in the first place?
My guess is that he had a partial strain or a partial tear of the PCL, and I know you guys love the props, so I'm going to bring it out.
Yeah, there it is.
You love it. You love it. I know you do. So the inside of the knee, he's got the ACL and the PCL, the 2 biggest ligaments of the knee. The PCL, unfortunately, or fortunately, actually, does not need surgery when it tears. So if you have a partial tear, you can actually play pretty effectively. My guess is that he tore it even further, and now he's out on IR for 6 to 8 weeks.
I'll be honest, I thought Dr. P was going to say drugs, Emerson. That's how he played through this. Shot him right up.
Occasionally helps, for sure. Ryan, the Bucs DST is very cheap this week, $2,400. Any interest in playing them in Chicago?
Not for me. I mean, they're in the bottom half of all of our projections, and I think the Chicago Bears offensive line goes underrated, year over year, and they're sneaky good. On the other side of the ball, the Bears defense has forced 8 turnovers already this season. And we just saw Fitzmagic throw 3 picks last week. Yeah. So with Tampa Bay on a short week after Monday Night Football, I think there's the potential for turnovers on the offensive side and maybe some slack play defensively. And I think with Chicago likely grinding the clock out, maybe winning the trenches battle on the front, it's hard for me to see the upside in the Bucs defense, even though the price is so low.
Yeah, here a guy named Khalil Mack plays a small role in that Chicago defense. Hey, Reed, what do you think? Would you take a shot, 2,400 here for the Bucs defense in Chicago? You're shaking your head no? Sounds good.
No way. I mean, I think Ryan gets the award for the most emotion without showing any emotion. It's amazing.
There he is. Oh, we got a smile.
There it is.
We got a smile.
Oh, got him. No, I mean, look, Tampa Bay is still second worst in total defense. They gave up 475 yards on the road, total yards. That's worse in the NFL. They even let Big Ben put up 28 DK fantasy points and a pass rating of 120, who's notoriously bad on the road. Tampa Bay's defense is not a defense I'm attacking, even at this cheap price. Like Tennessee, I just talked about Tennessee's defense. They're cheap, and they have 4 takeaways this season. They're 4th best in team defense. I'd rather go there or pay up for the Chargers, for instance, as opposed to that. So, no way.
You're lucky you guys aren't in the same room there, Reed. Ryan strikes me as the kind of guy who's not to be messed with.
Yeah, he would actually punch you in the face, Reed.
Dr. P, I'm gonna need you to work. Yeah.
It's
so no
okay
way.
though.
Well, at least there's already a doctor in the house.
I was gonna say
exactly.
I'm there to help anybody out who needs it.
All right, you need to go operate. That thing is going crazy. Gentlemen, we're going to let you go. We appreciate you. We appreciate the NBA as well because, well, the news, it never stops in the association. Brendan Glasheen has the latest on the Jimmy Butler trade wins.
Time for your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. I'm Brendan Glasheen. Jimmy Butler to South Beach? Well, Mark Stein of the New York Times reports Jimmy Butler and his agent have informed Timberwolves ownership that Miami is Butler's preferred trade destination. This connects all the dots back to Sunday's news from ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski, who reported that Pat Riley and the Heat have been aggressive as any team in pursuit of a Butler trade with Minnesota. Woj has the latest on the nitty-gritty of a potential deal. The Suns have emerged as a potential third-team partner. Phoenix is pursuing a starting point guard, so Woj hypothesizes Butler to the Heat, Goran Dragic to the Wolves, and Jeff Teague to the Suns. We'll see how all of this plays out. Fantasy-wise, Butler in Miami would benefit both himself and Karl Anthony Towns. Most rank Butler's ADP in the high teens to low 20s, while Towns is consistently inside the top 10. Each player easily, no doubt, becomes a number 1 scoring option. Especially for Butler, he can take advantage of a weak Eastern Conference. A trade wouldn't be great for the Wolves' hopes in the loaded Western Conference, but excellent for fantasy owners of both Butler and Cap.
Great stuff, Brendan. NBA Media Days now behind us. Training camps are here with the preseason arriving in just about 48 hours.
Coming quick,
Celtics are going to hit the floor, man, which I know makes you kind of hot and bothered.
Well, I'm excited about it. What's not to be? Kyrie Irving's staying for 100 years, doesn't want to leave Boston. Gordon Hayward's
the next Moses.
Top 5 player in the NBA. Everybody's all right, these guys are also fired up. You have Matt LaMarca of the Action Network, Alex Barutha of RotoWire. Guys, we're playing NBA high or low to see if the following ADPs are too high, too low, or just right. You know, just like Goldilocks. Yeah, and the Bears. All right. Yeah. As Brendan mentioned in his Fantasy Flash, Jimmy Butler, ADP, it's anywhere from the mid-teens to the low 20s. What's a potential trade to Miami do for his average draft position? What do you think, Matt?
I think you have to upgrade him if he lands in Miami. If you look at the Timberwolves last year, he was just one of a handful of high-usage players on that team. Karl Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, Jeff Teague, all of those guys commanded a usage rate of over 20%. Jamal Crawford and Derrick Rose off the bench were also pretty high-usage guys. So in Miami, I think he would have more of a chance to be, quote-unquote, the guy in the offense. especially if Dragic is part of the trade package, which is what the current rumor is. You know, his career high usage rate, Butler, is 26.5%, and he did that 2 years ago in Chicago. I think he could very easily eclipse that for the Heat. He already gives you nice value in all of the peripheral statistics across the board at shooting guard, so I think he could become a huge asset if he takes his scoring to another level.
Yeah, Alex, I mean, it should be common sense, right? Butler's forcing his way out of a situation where he's got to share the ball with Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns. If he goes to Miami, how does he not be the guy? ADP has to improve.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Matt said. My main concern about Butler potentially going to Miami is just the overall minutes workload. I mean, we know Tom Thibodeau, who's coached Jimmy Butler for basically as long as we can remember, has been playing Butler 38 minutes a night over the past 5 years. That's an average. I don't think Spoelstra will do that. I think he's the kind of coach who likes his reserves. So I think while he could see more usage in Miami, his numbers may stay stagnant because I assume his minutes will go down. So I think all in all, personally, I wouldn't really adjust his ADP depending on the trade.
Interesting. Yes, very interesting. Well, if Jimmy does get shipped off here, guys, what do you think of an ADP of 7 for Karl Anthony Towns? Alex?
I think that's good. I might even go higher. I think you could go as high as 3 or 4. I mean, this is a guy who averaged 25 points and 13 rebounds on about 55% shooting when Butler missed those games late in the year. And he did that at 22 years old. He's only getting better. The Wolves probably aren't going to add a high usage player through this trade. They signed Towns to a max extension. He's really the future of the franchise. I think they're going to lean on him big time, and I wouldn't be afraid, like I said, to go 3 or 4 when drafting him.
If you're bumping him up from 7 to potentially 3, though, Alex, real quick before we get to Matt, and last year he averaged basically 45, as you see on the screen, 45 fantasy points per game. How much higher does that go this year?
I think he could go 48 or 50. I mean, he really is a 30 and 15 threat almost every single night, and he's not a bad passer either. He can get a block here or there. He's going to hit you, with threes if you play in a category league. So, I mean, he really is emerging as a star in the NBA.
Matt, you look like you agree here. How high would you, set his ADP of then if it's not 7?
I love Towns. I think I would take him earlier than 7, even with Butler on the team. And with Butler potentially being shipped out, I'd honestly be willing to take him as high as number 2 overall behind Anthony Davis. If you look last season for season-long leagues, he finished 4th on the player rater, and that was with seeing approximately a 5% decrease in his usage rate with the addition of Butler. If he leaves, I think he's got a good chance to get back to the 27.5% usage mark he posted in 2017. And if he does that, there's nothing that this guy doesn't give you. He gives you all the traditional stats that you're looking for in a big man. He's elite in field goal percentage, rebounds, points, blocks. And he combines that with about 1.5 threes per game and shoots almost 86% from the free throw line. So he literally gives you above average to elite production in every single category across the board. He might be my number 2 pick if Jimmy Butler does get shipped out.
You're thinking close to 50 fantasy points per game as well?
Yeah, for sure. Like the DK and the season-long leagues are a little bit different. I definitely love him a lot more in season-long leagues where you're trying to contend in a whole bunch of categories. But I certainly think that he's going to be viable on a nightly basis in DFS too.
Gordon Hayward, interesting case, of course, back from the gruesome injury that wiped out his first year in Boston. It was ugly, but now he's healthy. By all accounts, feels great, basically 100%. Expectations are high, not only for the team, but certainly for Hayward. We don't know what his minutes per game are going to be as he works his way back from this injury. So how does an ADP of 40 sound for the Celtics star, Matt?
I think it's a little too high. This one was honestly tough because we have, virtually no sample size of what the Celtics are going to look like with Hayward. But what we do know is that the Celtics were outstanding defensively last season and that they played at one of the slowest paces in the leagues. The Celtics also super talented and deep roster, and Brad Stevens has kind of come out and said that Hayward is going to rest occasionally to start the season. I could see them taking it easy on him, easing his way back into an injury situation. And even if not, the roster just has so many mouths to feed, so many guys who are going to need the ball. I think Hayward is going to be like an overqualified role player as opposed to like a star in Boston. So I'm personally not really that interested in him at the 40th spot in the draft.
Alex, so what I'm hearing then is that Daddy's not always happy?
Well, I mean, I would take Hayward. I actually took Hayward at 39 in a mock draft, so I think I technically have to say I would actually go over. There are a lot of mouths to feed for sure. That is a concern, and they may ease him back into things a little bit. But, I mean, Gordon Hayward is a guy, he was an all-star 2 years ago in a loaded Western Conference. Now that he's in the East, things might be a little easier. And we saw, as far as an injury concern, we saw Paul George come back from probably an equally gruesome leg injury, and he picked up right where he left off. So I'm not too concerned about that. And if anything, maybe being surrounded by so much talent in Boston could help Hayward with his assists and his efficiency. We know he's a good passer. So I think overall an ADP of 40 is about where he should be drafted, and that's definitely a good spot to take him.
Well, we are always happy when you two can join the program. We really appreciate it. So let's transition now to football. Hello, Jeff Ulrich, Reed Fowler, and Ryan Collinsworth from the Action Network. We are looking at some NFL over-unders for some fantasy players here, some fantasy point thresholds. First up, let's go Tom Brady's coming off one of the worst starts in recent memory. He going over or under 20 DK points against the Dolphins, Reed?
Yeah, you really have to go back to 2009 to see this slow start with Tom Brady, who only threw 3 touchdowns, I think, to 2 interceptions that season. But look, he still got you 6 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. So again, that's a 3-to-1 ratio. I do think he does go over this. He's hit it twice out of the last 3 times that he's faced the Dolphins. The Dolphins now are coming to New England on a high, right? They're 3-0, now going up against the Patriots team that's 1-2. Like, Hogan's a no-show, so we know that's potentially not going to be there. Gronk's potentially going to be bracketed. So who do you go to? I think a lot of that production does go to the running backs, and I do think that Brady will get that 20-point plus mark on the help with Sony Michel and James White catching the ball in the backfield, because this Miami defense is decent, but I do think that they do well at home in New England.
All right, I'm looking at his fantasy points per game. He started at 22, 17, down to 8 last week at Detroit. What are the chances he hits 20 here, Jeff? Over or under that?
I mean, well, how is fading the Patriots worked out in these spots over the last 15 years for people? I still can't believe I go on Twitter after last week and I see people, time has caught up with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. The Patriots are done. Everything's crumbling. Yeah, that really works out well. This is a huge bounce back spot. There's a reason they have an implied team total of over 27 this week. They're getting Josh Gordon into the lineup now. That's probably going to be a touchdown right there. Yeah, he's going to go over. I mean, I like the Dolphins secondary. It's emerging. It's got some good players. They have not been tested yet this year. This is the Patriots at home off of 2 losses. Bill Belichick will have the team ready. Tom Brady is going to bounce back. He's going to go way over 20 DK points. Again, you learn from history.
Wow. Okay.
People might have said the same thing last week.
Yeah, for sure.
Didn't really work out in Detroit.
Going way over 20 here? Yeah, there were a lot of people saying that last week, thinking they were just
going to cut circles around Patricia. No problem.
I hate to be the contrarian here, and I hate even more to be on the side of public opinion. That usually sucks, as Jeff alluded to. But if I have to pick, I'll take the under here. Our projections have him right at 20, so I think the line is actually sharp with this prop at 20. But the Patriots have just dealt with so many injuries, like public perception aside, like going back to the preseason, O-line, running back, obviously with Burkhead, and also Jeremy Hill. Wide receiver has been a joke. It's been a total carousel going back to the offseason. And it's not that their skill positions are not still loaded. I still like their skill position players, but I don't think it can be understated how much turmoil all that can put into offensive responsibilities and the rapport that you build. So if I have to pick a side, I'll pick the under. But whether or not he hits that mark, I still like somebody like Rivers better, $200 cheaper. I don't understand why you'd have to take the risk here.
All right, well, Alvin Kamara, he keeps rolling along with Mark Ingram out. He's averaging 34 fantasy points through 3 games. Do you see 25 in his future against the Giants this week? And he's $9,700, and I can't get enough. Let's kick it right back to Stone-faced Collinsworth over there. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm here for this with Alvin Kamara. Absolutely. He's our consensus number 1 running back this week. He has a ridiculous 29.7% target share for the Saints. He's got 38 targets, 30 receptions this season. Both of those are top 4 in the NFL at any position. And both of those are better than Odell Beckham in this same game. Like, as we've discussed already, I think the matchup with the Giants has the potential for a lot of points scored. And Kamara is rolling, and his skill set is pretty much immune to game flow. So, absolutely, over.
Jeff, he is coming off a stupid 15 receptions on 20 targets. We're talking about a running back here, but is he going to keep doing this?
You know, I want to say no, but at the same time, look at the Saints offense right now. It's Michael Thomas and it's Alvin Kamara out of the backfield. Until Mark Ingram gets back, you can probably just pencil him in for like at least 20 DK points every week, because that is the Saints offense. It's Drew Brees working out of the slot with Kamara, giving him a couple handoffs, and then going over the middle to Michael Thomas. So I want to say, you know, the matchup isn't quite as good, obviously. I mean, last week was like the prime matchup with the Falcons, who don't cover anyone out of the backfield. New York's a little bit better in that regard, but they're still like a bottom 15, bottom 10 team in that so far in 2018. So I'm just going to say yes. I mean, I want to say no. Part of me wants to. I'm usually wrong, though, so I'm going to go against myself, just like George Costanza would, and say no. He'll hit the mark.
Reed, we going to keep watching this Saint go marching in?
Yeah, first things first, I got to call it Emerson. Stay on your mark, buddy. Come on.
Yeah,
let's go.
He's darting around. You can't keep this guy like.
He's tweeting mid-show. I like that. Yeah, I do like that. No, send it to the Twitter. No, I think he does. These guys are right. I mean, the Giants are 12th, I think 12th best for opposing running backs, giving up 12th most DK fantasy points. But just to add on to what these guys are saying, it's also the Saints defense that allows these guys like Mike Thomas and Kamara and Brees to see big games. They got to score a ton of points to stay in big games. So you can take a flyer on Ginn. You could potentially take a flyer on Cameron Meredith if you really wanted to, but why? Kamara is getting you guys just mentioned it, 30 plus DK fantasy points. Pencil him in for at least 25 at the floor. And a Giants team that, yes, they do have better coverage guys at linebacker, but Ogletree doesn't necessarily scare me, especially Kamara. Like, how did this guy go so far in the actual NFL draft? He is one of the best players that the NFL has seen so far. So, yeah, over.
All righty.
You can't keep this guy focused.
What
it's
are you
unbelievable,
talking
Reed.
about?
All right, go
First
ahead.
off, and I wasn't tweeting. Real talk, I was pulling up a picture of my dog because he's showing me pictures of his kids. So I'm like, well, I got to show him pictures of my dog.
Sure, well, we have things to do during breaks.
All right, guys, we're out of time. Reed, we appreciate it. Jeff, thanks, Mr. Collinsworth, as well. You stone cold son of a gun.
Got it.
More baseball on the way with our panel, including the acclaimed Put Up Your Buke segment. But first, Brendan Glasheen chatting with Marlins outfielder Lewis Brinson. This is an exclusive.
Happy to have Miami Marlins outfielder Lewis Brinson joining the sweat. Lewis, what's up? Thanks for coming on with us.
How you doing, man? Good to be here.
2018 season is coming to an end, as most of us know. What are some things that you personally are looking to build off of and head into 2019 with?
I think just the consistency. Past maybe since June, obviously I got hurt, but I was feeling pretty good. And then this month I'm feeling pretty good at the plate. Just trying to build off that. Obviously it hasn't been the best year for me, but I definitely want to build off the past couple months that I've had, and the success that I've had, and just keep playing. Great defense out there, but at the same time, I want to get better at the plate, more consistent. So that's just something I'm looking to improve in the offseason.
JT Realmuto having a career year, National League All-Star catcher. What's it been like to watch him succeed?
Oh, it's been great, man. Playing on the same field as him, kind of watching from afar last year. But I've said it all year. He's probably the best catcher in the game, in my opinion. Has speed, calls a great game, kind of a workhorse. Everybody kind of fluctuate towards him. He kind of leads by example, not real vocal, but just leads by example, and just a really good teammate. And obviously he's having a great year, and really carried us pretty much all year.
Yeah, what's something maybe you've taken from him that you've tried to apply to your game?
Just like I said, leading by example. He carries himself very, very well, like a professional. Walks around the clubhouse. Everybody kind of just respects him. Just goes about his business. Always in the video room. Looking at the other team's lineup. Always working on, just trying to get an edge on everything. Just trying to be a professional every day. And I think that's something that I've kind of, rubbed off on him.
Lewis, you're from Fort Lauderdale. In the offseason, you were a part of a trade to send Christian Yelich, who's pretty good, to the Brewers, and you got word you were heading back home to Florida. What was your immediate reaction?
Immediate reaction was kind of shocked, but as it kind of sunk in, I was happy. Called my mom, called everybody, and told them about the trade before it broke news. And everybody obviously was thrilled to have me back home. And playing for my hometown team, I couldn't ask for anything better. Before
we get you out of here, we got to talk about fantasy sports. That's what we do here at DraftKings. Do you play fantasy sports?
Sometimes, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But I know a lot of guys in here do. I think everybody around baseball does.
You said you play fantasy sometimes. Does that include this year? Do you have a football team, a fantasy football team?
No, I didn't play this year.
Why not?
I don't know. I didn't play this year. I didn't get into it this year.
There's a guy in the clubhouse that you could, pinpoint as the fantasy guru for the Marlins clubhouse. Who's the guy?
There's a good amount of guys. I think everybody but me plays fantasy football, but I'd have to say probably Dan Straley or Miguel Rojas. Miguel Rojas is pretty animated when it comes to fantasy football. So.
All right, yeah, we had JT Riddle on earlier, and he was talking about how he's been playing since he was 10 years old. So you got some guys in there that really do love it. How often do fans share with you personally, whether they're yelling in center field or right field and they're chirping at you, or if you see them after a game and they're saying, hey, I had you on my fantasy team tonight and you didn't come through. Do you hear that stuff at all?
Sometimes, or you'll see it online after a game, or but sometimes they'll say that. It's like, man, I started you today, and I'm like, well, I'm sorry. It's just it wasn't my night, but I'll come through for you next time.
What would it take to get you back involved with fantasy?
I don't know. Probably the right year, I guess. I don't know. Somebody just maybe a group of my friends, because a lot of my friends that are from here don't really play fantasy football. We just go to the games or either watch it on TV. So maybe if like a group of guys that I was really close with played, and from back home, maybe I would. But I got to get into it, man. I think it brings the team closer if everybody on the team gets into it. So I got to get into it. Sure.
All right. Well, hey, you got a game to get ready for. Lewis Brinson, outfielder for the Miami Marlins. Thanks a lot for your time, and we'll make sure we keep on you to join some fantasy sometimes.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Y'all know what time it is. The man who has his very own animated open, and deservingly so. Let's roll it. Let's put up your bukes with Steve Buchanan and his best friend Gary and Thorne, our dude Billy in the back in graphics, man. He absolutely crushed that one.
Kind of looks like a jacked up version of the little dude from Mike Tyson Punch-Out.
And Steve, I know you shared that on Facebook.
That's pretty accurate. That's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
It was getting a lot of love from your friends and family on Facebook.
Yeah, it was all over the place.
Big hit.
Be proud.
Gary, maybe we'll give you one too, where like you roll in on a train or something.
Choo choo.
You guys ever been on a train?
Yes,
yeah, dude.
That's where I got the idea from.
He's punching tickets. He's punching us out. One's punching out and the other's punching tickets.
Steve, hit us with their 3 picks of the night, please, with their point projections, and then Gary will do his best to debate you on them.
Yeah, we don't want to talk anymore.
So I have a quick programming note to make, bring to light here.
Oh.
Matt there challenged me that Nolan Arenado was going to have more than 50% ownership last night, and then he would take over this segment. Yeah, who was just in basketball and not in baseball, okay? So we all know who was right there last night. So Matt LaMarca with his bets. Sorry, buddy. Didn't happen.
Slate approved.
Reign supreme. Okay, so we're going to go off the segment now. Thank you for letting me get that out.
Yeah.
We're going to start with Matt Boyd, 23 DK fantasy points. I can't tell you the last time I rostered Boyd and was happy about it, but I think I can actually do it tonight. I'm not expecting him to dominate tonight, but I think he can have a good enough start where he can reach that threshold. In the second half, the Twins have just not hit lefties at all. They only own a 285 WOBA versus them, a 112 isolated power. They don't strike out a ton, which isn't great, but I still think Boyd can get to that 23 DK fantasy point threshold there. He's only 7,700, so that's what's really kind of enticing me here with all the expensive options tonight. 7,700 doesn't feel like much to pay up for an SP2, so I'm going to roll with Boyd tonight.
Gary, what do you think? You like the projection of 23 fantasy points?
Well, I see why Steve spends so much time talking off the top of this, because I wouldn't want to get to these picks either if one of them was Matthew Boyd on the road. Matthew Boyd is awful on the road. His last 10 road starts, 6.5 ERA, giving up 2.2 home runs per 9. If you want to attack this game from a pitching perspective, I would much rather roster Jake Odorizzi for $200 more. Ooh. He's a fly ball pitcher, yes, but the Tigers have the lowest WOBA in baseball on fly balls this season. I actually kind of like Tyler Austin. I like Robbie Grossman in this game, batting cleanup. I'm not touching Tyler Boyd or Matt Boyd tonight. Sorry.
Man, who's the one putting up his bukes in this segment?
Right? And you gonna defend yourself a little bit?
Steve? I mean, he didn't even know who he was talking about. He was talking about Tyler Boyd. That guy doesn't even exist.
He's a receiver for the Bengals
in baseball.
Well, he exists.
I'm glad, hey, listen to this guy. He's talking about football in the baseball segment. Let's just move on. We don't want Gary to embarrass himself.
Enough by your picks where I even have to put thought into this. I'm sorry. I'm kind of floating in and out.
We're going to sit out
Garen's very self-conscious of his conductor hat. His conductor hat is throwing him off. We're going to go to Steven Piscotty for 16 DK fans.
Oh, is that a person? Is Steven Piscotty a person?
Whenever you're ready.
Ready?
Go on, please.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody's ready here, okay? He might be my favorite A player of all time. I woke up in a new Piscotty. That should be like his tagline there. Depending on his spot in the lineup, he's usually left out of the stacks because he usually bats 6. So if you're stacking 1 through 5, you're most likely going to be leaving him on the board. But like we were talking about earlier, Felix Hernandez against righties, 332 WOBA with 11 of his 25 home runs allowed. I think the A's are going to pounce on Hernandez early here. Piscotty should be part of that, absolutely. Since the All-Star break, he's been crushing the ball. 260 isolated power for Piscotty with 14 of his 26 home runs. Got to lock him in tonight.
Is Piscotty a thorn in your side here, Garion?
No, I like Piscotty. I do like Piscotty. I feel like Steve said, a lot of people are going to focus on the left-handed bats, as they should, but like a lot of those left-handed bats, and like we see as a constant thread through these Oakland Athletic hitters, when they get to leave the Coliseum, which is one of the best pitchers' parks in baseball, they just tend to do better across the board. And Piscotty, who already has reverse splits, when he gets a right-handed pitcher on the road this season, he's got a 264 isolated power. So everyone's going to be stacking the A's. He's probably a nice little pivot play within that stack. So I do like Piscotty.
One more Buke. One more Buke. One more Buke.
I'm just so happy that I was able to please her Topham hat here. Thank you very much.
See, a man with kids.
I'm gonna be going with Herrera from the Phillies for 14 DK fantasy points. I mean, the consensus is here. Marquez is someone to play, and I absolutely have no problem doing that. But lefties have given him some trouble, and Garion can't dispute that at all. 395 WAR against him at home, 6 of his 22 home runs allowed. He's not hitting like he used to. I'll definitely give him that. He is one of the streakiest hitters in baseball right now. I think that's definitely something you could say about him, but he still has that power threat. And he gets you exposure at Coors Field for just $4,200 tonight. All I'm asking for is just a solo shot. That's all I want. I'll be happy with that. You don't have to get anything after that. Just hit your one-run home run, your solo shot, and I'll be pleased. 14 DK fantasy points.
He's projecting him for 14 points. Fantasy points. Garion?
I can dispute that he has his problems with left-handers, because if you look into the recent stats, since July 29th, when he's had this amazing turnaround and been maybe one of the 4 best pitchers in all of baseball, he's got a 1.52 FIP to left-handed bats at Coors Field. 9.6% fly ball rate. So good luck trying to get your home run with a guy who hasn't hit anything across the last month against one of the best pitchers in baseball.
And what if he does?
It's a contrarian play, I'll give you that.
What if he does hit one? Well, will you not wear that hat again?
No, I'm wearing my goddamn hat.
He's got a real problem with that hat.
I'm trying to do you a favor.
Hey,
look, man, when your building's hydro goes out and you got to wear a hat, you got to wear a hat, okay?
Hey, Buse has kind of been acting like an asshat, if we're being honest.
No comment. No comment. All right, we got a minute left. Let's go slate approve. Who's your lock of the night, Garion?
I'm going to go with German Marquez. I think he's a lock for 30 points.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Chris Sale. I mean, that's a no-doubter right there.
Yeah. All right, you two. Y'all just keep on chugging along out there, okay?
Yeah, maybe don't talk to each other until the next show. Sit a couple plays out.
Yeah.
Yeah, go hang out with Julian, another guy I like.
Oh, that's no fair.
Oh, poor Jules. He's not even here to defend himself, and none of us.
I know, he's got a family.
Felix is probably sitting on Twitter watching anyway.
All right,
He'll
dudes.
respond.
Thanks, guys, and thanks to everyone at home for watching.
Yeah, we're going to do it again, as we do. Monday through Friday, 6 to 7. We'll be back with you. That means tomorrow, Facebook Live, YouTube Live.
You and Reed tomorrow night at 6 o'clock.
Me and Fowler. Let's see if Fowler can host and provide analysis. Should be good.
He struggles with that.
Great. Should be a fun show.
Toodles.
Bye-bye.